I think we'll stay inside today, Mark.
Yeah, good.
Calling all you mid-handicap golfers out there. Today, myself and Mark are going to answer the age-old question. Should you be using steel shafted irons or graphite shafted irons? Let's do it.
And let's do it now.
Hi everyone, James Robinson here. If you're new to the channel and this is your first time watching my content, Mark, what do they have to do?
Subscribe.
Make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss anything that myself and Mark, we're doing loads of stuff.
Yeah, we're doing a lot of stuff now.
Myself and my mid-handicap tester Mark are putting on. Make sure you don't miss it. Let's get straight back to this video on a graphite shafted iron against a steel shafted iron for a mid-handicap golfer. Today we're using the Ping i500 7-iron head.
Both stiff shafts. The graphite I'm expecting to be lighter in the swing and therefore perhaps a bit more speed through the ball, and therefore we'll need to see what happens off the club face with that additional speed. More control, more distance, less control, less distance and so on. Both shafts are standard length. I'm 5'11", so standard length is pretty standard for a 5'11" player. So we'll see what happens.
Okay guys, so just like Mark said, two stiff shafts, both standard length. We're going to go steel shaft first here because that's what Mark's used to. Then we're going to check out the numbers. Then we're going to have a look at the graphite shaft. And then we're going to see which shaft which shaft Mark should be using. Let's do it, and let's do it now. I couldn't let Mark do the only one of them in the video, could I? Okay Mark, so fire away. We're going to hit half a dozen shots to start with, see how that goes.
Half dozen should be a reasonable number.
Oh, Mark.
That's got nice and high and fairly straight, hasn't it?
You guys seeing this? Mid-handicap.
That was one shot, come on. That was the low runner.
And this is really important, guys. That wasn't Mark's best swing, but we are going to keep it in there for the numbers. We want as fair a comparison as possible. Obviously, Mark being a mid-handicapper, it's not going to be, in fairness, the most consistent number. Is that fair to say, I think?
Yeah.
Yep. A little bit right, but another fantastic strike. Real consistent numbers these, aren't they?
Yeah, not bad. That was a drag.
Yeah, well, we'll keep it, that's fine. That's your 6. Okay, so that is the first 6 shots hit. That is with the steel shaft. Mark, before we take a look at the numbers, obviously you've played steel a long time. Just tell the people at home what you thought to that. Maybe a little bit about the club, but mainly about the shaft.
Well, with the stiff shaft in it, I felt much more in control of the swing and therefore more confident perhaps of the head striking the ball properly.
Yeah.
Although as you'll see from the shots, those I struck well went very nicely. Those I didn't strike so well, they still went okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So remember, we are using the Ping i500. It is a power iron, so we would be expecting to see some pretty impressive numbers.
Some good numbers, yeah.
So just before we move on to the graphite, let's take a look at the numbers for Mark, the mid-handicap tester, for a steel shafted Ping i500 7-iron. Okay guys, so as you can see here, high pressure in these, that's bringing in rain in the south, and Mark's numbers are... So seriously talking you through the numbers now, if we look at those 6 shots, there is a fantastic consistency about them. Taking away shot number 3 and shot number 6, they're all pretty much the same, Mark. Averaging total distance 160, so bear that one in mind, and averaging spin rate just under 5,000, so bear that one in mind when we do the comparison right at the end. Averaging ball speed 110, averaging club head speed 87.3. So these are all things that we're going to have a look at. We're going to compare them at the end. I would expect club head speed maybe to rise on the graphite shaft. It's going to be really interesting to see what that does to spin rate and also what it does to distance. That's it from me, the weatherman. Let's get back to hitting these graphite shafts.
Draw. We've got 3 draws.
What do you call that, a chest of drawers? Okay guys, now moving on to the graphite. The graphite shaft in question is Ping's very own Alta CB shaft in a stiff flex. It looks fantastic actually, it's a lovely black matte colour, isn't it? Yeah. So let's see how that compares against Ping's very own steel CFS shaft.
Well, my first reaction is, crikey, I can't feel there's any shaft in between. Okay. It feels extremely heavy. At
The club head feels heavy, yeah.
It feels very heavy.
Ooh. Now that's interesting. First swing with the graphite shaft. Mark's obviously warmed up. It sounded good. Did it feel good, Mark?
Yeah,
Felt good, sounded good, and we're 10 yards down. That is only one shot though. Let's hit 5 more just for a fair comparison. Lovely ball flight again, Mark. Let me just zoom in for people on that. Look at that ball flight. There's some mid-handicappers who'd pay money for that, Mark.
Well, I'll let you have my swing if you give me your money.
Sounded amazing. Club head speed up.
Yes.
Spin slightly down. Distance the same?
Distance about the same, yeah. Well, that was good because that was a very heavy one.
Yeah, similar to one of the shots of the last one actually, wasn't it? That's the golf swing.
That felt much better.
And I've got to say there that Mark was hitting some absolute bombs in the warm-up, so that doesn't surprise me, that number at all. That is massive. Mid-handicap 7-iron, 170 odd yards. You what? Everyone's commenting now. He must not be able to chip and putt very well.
The problem with doing that though, James, is that when you're on that little par 3, if you hit your shot 150 and it lands on the green because that's 150, then great. But if you hit it 178, without realising you're off the back and in trouble.
Yes, it's wonderful to hit that shot, and it's amazing to hit a 7-iron so far. But similar for myself when I tested the TaylorMade P790s, to have that shot that looks amazing and then just keeps going and going and going, and I mean I can fast forward that as much as you want, but the fact is it's neither use nor ornament realistically in a real life situation, is it?
No, it's all about the consistency and you know the ability to know how far you're likely to hit the club.
Yeah. One more. Make it a good one. Oh. So guys, we'll just have a quick roundup there of what Mark thought about the graphite shafted iron before we take a look at the numbers. I've got a feeling these numbers are going to be pretty impressive, Mark. For me as a coach looking at it, the first few shots, Mark was struggling to feel where the club head was, he was struggling to feel how he could get club on ball, but as soon as he got used to that, the strikes sounded phenomenal, the ball flights were immense. Mark, just tell everybody what you thought to that shaft.
Well, just as you say there, James, I didn't like the feel of the club when I first picked it up. It just felt too, there was nothing between the hands and the head, and therefore I felt nervous and not confident with playing the shots. But once I got into it, once I got a bit more confident and realised the ball was actually going where I was hitting it, sort of thing, confidence started to increase, and I was able to actually swing more. Well, I was actually playing a golf shot rather than wondering how this club was going to play the shot.
So guys, James Robinson back here, your local weatherman, and yeah, it's not even funny that joke, is it? Let's talk the numbers. So numbers for the mid-handicap graphite shaft test. Let's talk about what everyone wants to talk about, the average distance. An average distance is up by a whole 4 yards. 4 yards average distance, but in fairness, looking at those last 2 shots, they were absolutely monstrous shots. Looking at the spin rates for these shots, 4,694, so that's 300 less than the steel shaft, making quite a big difference in realistic terms. Club head speed is pretty much the same at 87, 0.3 mile an hour off, so we're not going to clutch at any straws there. Ball speed up by a solemn 1 mile an hour. So looking at the numbers between the graphite shaft and the steel shaft for a mid-handicap golfer, very similar to what I found when I did this test, and this video's had loads and loads of hits when I put this test out there. I didn't see a massive difference. Mark, do you want to come in shot and just tell people, first of all, how the clubs felt, and then second of all, the difference or lack thereof in the numbers?
Yeah, okay. I'm used to playing a steel shaft, and therefore the first set of shots were much more confidently struck, and the distance was reasonable. I had a couple of bad shots in the middle there, so that brought the average down. But on the graphite, it took me a few swings to get used to it. But having done that, the last couple of shots were really big. I don't think I'd have a problem with a graphite shaft if I got used to it. You know, a bit more practice. The distance could be further than the steel shaft, but I'm not sure that I'm looking for distance.
Exactly. This is one of the exact, and I'm going to. Mark is a mid-handicap golfer, but in my eyes, and I'm sure in your eyes at home, if you followed mine and Mark's journey so far, it's been good, hasn't it, Mark?
Yeah.
So far, it's
Yeah.
been all right. Yeah. Mark, I think next year could be lower than that. I think we're looking at single figures next year. So I'll hate to lose Mark as a mid-handicap tester, but the way Mark's golf is going, it's on the down. No, wait, it's on the downward spiral, upward spiral. Mark's golf is improving. So for me, if you are a mid-handicap tester and you're looking at clinging on to that mid-handicap, clinging on like cliff edge, and you're trying to do that by creating maybe a little bit more ball speed, by lowering the spin rate, getting a bit more distance out there, by all means, graphite shafts could be for you. But I'm sure Mark will agree with me here, graphite shafts aren't for everyone, and if you're looking at improving your game, I think maybe stick it out with steel and just work on your game a little bit, Mark.
Yeah.
And one thing I did when I did this test, I got out on the golf course, played some different shots, just like me and Mark did when we did the blade versus cavity back iron review. So comment below, would you like to see me and Mark, or basically Mark, get out on the golf course, test these shafts in a real-time environment on the golf course? Equally, what do you think about putting a graphite shaft into a bladed head? That could be a bit of a mashup, couldn't it?
We could see what happens to that.
But guys, apart from that, this is Mark, my mid-handicap tester. His Twitter is below there. My Twitter's up here. My Instagram's over there. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you soon.
Great. See you soon.